Ahoy, everyone. It is I, Wyatt Claypool, and my guest host, or co-host, not guest host, what am I saying? Daniel Bordman, back for another episode of TNT Live to talk about some of the political happenings in Canada. We even managed to start this show 2 minutes early because we're professionals and we
Super
like to
professional.
save you some time. So, today has been probably one of the most oddly productive weeks in Canadian politics in terms of just stuff happening.
Yeah.
We're used to Canadian politics. You can just type in, Justin Trudeau's name, other political figures' names, Canada in general, in Google and look for any news stories, and it's dead for weeks on end. It's like Justin Trudeau went to some event celebrating Ukrainian farmers, and it's like that's the only thing for like weeks at a time. Like, no, this week has been crazy. All
This
the
week's been a bit of a banger. Yeah, we
it's
got
like mini
literal
scandals
banger
all
because
over
we
the
got a
place.
boom boom event.
Resignations, trade deals being canceled, terrorist attacks. Basically, Tucker Carlson shows up to Canada, and the mask falls off Canada, and everything starts popping loose, and Canada becomes the country he says it is on his show.
Yeah, we put on a show for Tucker. Like people think Tucker put on a show for Canada. No. Canada put on a show for Tucker Carlson. We kicked it into overdrive.
Yeah,
things
weird. It's like Tucker's coming. Everyone, get off your Ritalin right now.
Or take a lot more Ritalin. Half of you get off Ritalin, and then the other half of you take that.
Everyone's
Ritalin.
like tweaking out the entire time he's here, just being like, "No, we're normal. We're normal.
We're normal." And then assalamu alaikum, I'm gonna go commit a terrorist attack, and everyone's like, "Yeah, this is normal." Pierre Poilievre needs to condemn Tucker Carlson. Allahu Akbar, Allah. And then
of course, my cardigan game is on point.
That's what Wyatt Claypool's here for. All cardigans all the time.
If you guys live near the border, go down to the U.S., go to a Target, and they have these sweaters, and they're like $15. They're amazing.
$15 cardigans. You heard it here first. You can get all the ladies, or none with these cardigans. Either one.
And speaking of someone who is not getting any of the ladies, it is our favorite Liberal MP. Or not, I don't know. I'm just assuming he is. David Lametti, the former Justice Minister or Attorney General, I think it's both. He is deciding that he is going to be leaving politics in the next 30 days here, resigning from his seat in Montreal area. I don't give a crap where he's the MP. But this is great news for us because even though a lot of people just tend to blame everything that happens in the Liberal government on Justin Trudeau because it is mostly Justin Trudeau's fault, there are a few Liberal MPs, Chrystia Freeland included, who are not just bad because they are subservient to Justin Trudeau, but they are bad in their own right. David Lametti, definitely one of those individuals. Maybe you want to give the rundown on his history since the SNC-Lavalin scandal. Before that, he's pretty irrelevant.
Yeah, he was brought in as like sort of this sociopathic mercenary to destroy the country's checks and balances. So I still maintain. Now, you know what, the Emergencies Act could be. You could argue this being the number one, but let's just say I've always said Justin Trudeau's biggest scandal is the SNC-Lavalin scandal because it was a complete destruction of the checks and balances of a country. Like, people know about America, right? The three branches of government. You have the executive, the president, the legislature. So you have a House and a Senate, and then you have the judiciary, and they all have different powers and they balance out, and that forms a healthy democracy. SNC-Lavalin in Canada was the story of the Prime Minister's office. So again, in Canada, the executive and half of the legislature are already rolled into one, right? The Prime Minister can whip the cabinet. The Canadian Senate doesn't exist. And you think it does, it doesn't. It's fake news. Like,
it's all a point
piece of paper. It doesn't matter. As far as you're concerned, I'm the Canadian Senate, and it doesn't matter. Okay, so that's you. So you already have the executive and the legislature pretty much rolled into one branch, and the only check and balance on that power is the judicial branch. And SNC-Lavalin was Jody Wilson-Raybould, the Indigenous woman, which I always hate referring to her as that, because what she did is when asked to throw away the DPP, this deferred prosecution agreement, which was a law created by the Liberals that SNC-Lavalin basically paid for to make it so they could still get government contracts even after committing felonies. So he passed this, and then it turns out they didn't even qualify it. But the independent judicial branch didn't give it to them. So Trudeau tried to pressure the then Attorney General to pressure her to basically throw away the law and make it that if you give money to the prime minister's office, you could do anything you want in the country. She said no. And this is where, Katie Telford threatened her and said they have people inside the Toronto Star and CBC and whatever who will write favorable op-eds if she screws over the country. But Jody Wilson-Raybould stayed firm. I'll give a shout out to Jane Philpott as well, who backed her. And she decided, no, she wasn't going to just destroy the entire country. She had principles. And then Justin Trudeau attacked her and tried to move her out. In order to clean this all up, he needed a sociopath who would come in and say, I don't care about the law. I don't care about checks and balances. I don't care about anything. I care about power and just outright taking it out and being a sort of swarmy sycophant on the way to the top. That was David Lametti. So David Lametti was brought in to destroy the institutions and the checks and balances of the country. So all Trump's a threat to democracy. This guy's a threat to democracy. Everything's a threat to democracy, except for Justin Trudeau, who ripped apart our institutions democratically.
There seems to be a weird association on the left that a threat to democracy is words that you say and not actions that you do. Because the Liberals, as long as they say the right words, David Lametti can do whatever he wants in terms of, like suspending free speech rights to gather, all this stuff, freezing people's bank accounts. And that's fine. But if Donald Trump says something that's rude, it's a threat to democracy or whatever. But like David Lametti is someone who legitimately we've heard in the background before he was even the justice minister, a complete actual psychopath. My take on this is that David Lametti is resigning because he's a political animal. Some people in the comments here are even saying, well, I wonder what law firm he's going to run for or going to work for. I don't even think he's going to do that. He might. The reason he left, he's a political animal, and I think he wanted to be the leader of the party. And it's probably been made very clear, especially after the Ken McDonald slip up where he was basically saying, it'd be great if Justin Trudeau would step down as leader, that Justin Trudeau's going nowhere, and so David Lametti can't go any higher than he currently is, and he's now just a backbench MP, so he's probably going to move on. The EA decision came down. That also probably destroys his reputation, so he can't even just wait it out until after the next election and then run for leader. He's pretty much at his road's end, and so he's leaving now. It's not because he gained a principle or because he thinks that, well, the Liberals aren't going to be in government next time. He probably could care less. He just wants to have more power than he currently does now.
Yeah, that's one way of looking. The other one is he's just I think he's just or maybe understands the landscape. He just realizes the smartest thing for him to do is just to run away and hide, because he knows the media won't chase him, right? Ezra Levant might show up on his doorstep in a month, but that's about it. Right? So he just gets to, the song Liberals, if you ever watch the Monty Python, Quest for the Holy Grail, Brave Sir Robin, you seen one where he heard ducked his tail and he ran? That's Lametti right now. I think he's made the calculus that I can just run away. I can just, people pointing out he nuked his X account or Twitter account, just nuke his X account, run away, resign, go off in the thing and let someone else deal with it, because then they don't have to ask him hard questions. And, I think he already did get a job at a law firm, because it makes sense that someone would hire him. Because for some
half the time, the people who end up getting hired by these different boards or law firms, they don't even really do that much work. They just bring people into the firm. They get to tell people that, hey, we have the former justice minister in our firm. And that sounds... Actually, my lawyer, Jonathan Dennis, he's probably one of the few former justice ministers from around Canada who actually works as the primary lawyer of the firm that he started. It's very... it's usually that if you're a Jason Kenney and you leave politics, you just sit on a bunch of oil and gas boards and you're just a reason for people to show up to the events because they can shake your hand or whatever. Jagmeet Singh, and this is why I always disagree with the idea that he's only sticking around for his pension. Jagmeet Singh was already extremely wealthy before he got into politics. He'll be wealthy after he leaves politics. He doesn't care about the pension. Jagmeet Singh's actually still a fairly young guy, and he has to wait another 10, 15 years anyways to get the pension to qualify based on his age. So I think Jagmeet Singh just likes being on camera, but if he leaves, he 100% will be the type of guy who just goes to a primarily Sikh or Brampton-based, Mississauga-based law firm, and he's just the face of it, and that's it. And he just gets paid, gets to put on Rolexes, gets to stand on billboards showing people his Rolexes.
Just be a socialist rapper
and say that you can be an annoying piece of garbage like me if you use our services.
Galen Weston wears 4 Rolexes. I only wear 2 because I'm the common man.
But he doesn't tell you, but the ones he wears around his like arms right there, and the ones he wears around his ankles.
Like a belt. He has a Rolex belt, like a WWE wrestler. Just a
Yeah.
giant Rolex belt, like coming in. Just
Jagmeet
jumping
Singh,
jumping off the top rope to like slam Galen Weston, like "Dirt!" And then he gets
Jagmeet
this
Singh
big
is the
Rolex
type of
belt.
guy who would wear a bomb vest, but if he hit the buttons, it would just start spraying gold glitter everywhere.
Maybe. Yeah. So Lametti's gone. I think that's good. I think it's good. I think I I'm I think
Here, I think you and I would both
more.
agree. If Justin Trudeau, if we both woke up tomorrow and Justin Trudeau's government was actually better, we'd be happy. I think that it's good for the Liberal Party to actually get rid of the crazies. It's like the argument people had that you don't actually want the Democratic Party in the US to make Bernie Sanders their presidential candidate, because regardless if he wins or not, he's made a party crazier over time. And
Yeah.
so I'd like the
Hopefully they will
Liberals, the NDP, the Greens to all be more normal. I was happy when Anami Paul was the leader. You probably were too, of the Green Party,
Yeah.
because she was a normal person. I disagree with her politics. She's a normal person. So I'd
Well,
rather
yeah, the Green Party threw a temper tantrum and got her out because
Yeah.
how dare a black woman have the audacity to be Jewish around the Greens? So
And
they,
so
they had a
that
strict no Jews allowed policy there.
yeah, so if we get a Jack Layton who comes and runs the NDP again, or a Thomas Mulcair, that's good. It's progress. The party is less insane. Just as I'd like the Conservative Party to be like more sane, and so it was a big upgrade from going from Aaron O'Toole to Pierre Poilievre.
Yeah, I generally agree with this take. Like, yeah, I think it's short-sighted to like cheer for your enemies to be crazy, because eventually they will get their finger on the button. And like,
Sorry, Frank Vaughn is a friend of the channel.
Stop picking
I hope
him?
Frank, you need to make more videos. I really like his stuff. I kind of base almost how I talk about politics out the way he would make videos in the past. Everyone should go follow him on X if you're on X.
Yeah. So, okay. Lametti's gone. That's a good thing. He's an outright sociopath. Like, can we get shorter interlude before we get to the next topic? I mean, Justin Trudeau clapping at that women's hockey game. Do you guys think that's just him not having any social skills, or like amphetamines? Like, are we talking cocaine, Adderall, snorting something, or is this like this man just doesn't understand human beings?
Sure, I'll pull that up.
Women hockey good. Me like, what's that one?
I'm gonna grab it. I think it's just that he's just he kind of is like a lot of drama kids that you know from school, that they're just, their way of acting is just acting over the top at all times. So it's like, I need you to act excited. And it's like the most like weird cartoonish acting
like a high
ever.
school drama kid, like getting improv directions and taking it too far, like overacting.
Yeah, like everything is like a Disney character. Like that's who they are. Yeah, so here's him clapping. He starts like really going ham on this clapping right here. It's like, it starts off like normal.
Look at the girl beside him.
Yeah, and like you're at like a what is this, like the PHWL or whatever? It's like some random regional
professional women's hockey league. It's a new women's hockey league.
Oh, it's a women's hockey league, but like dude, it's like you almost like the people who are actually there to watch the game are going to turn around. It's like, come on, nobody's this excited. like tone it down. It's like he's at like the '88 Olympic men's ice hockey championship. Settle down. It's a standard women's hockey game.
Yeah, that was fun. All right, what should we go on to now? The fact that we just had an Islamic terrorist attack and no one gives a All right, so Canada had an Islamic terrorist attack, and the guy made a video. He started, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Gaza, genocide, Jews. Inshallah, genocide, Jews, Gaza, inshallah, Allah alaikum. Basically, he went on and said, listen, I'm making a video to make it perfectly clear. My motivation for the terrorism I'm about to commit is Islamic fundamentalism, okay? Allahu Akbar. And as an Islamic fundamentalist terrorist, I'm going to do a terrorist attack inspired by Islam. Okay, just so you're clear, Islam is the motive. And then he goes, boom. And puts this video out, and we still have the Canadian establishment searching for a motive. Like, this is like the game show I used to run on my show on Tag TV. Like, what could the motive possibly be? And we're literally playing that game where like we cannot figure out the motive. I figured it out. You figured it out. I think the chat's figured it out. But the police and the Toronto Star, the Globe and Mail, and the entire Liberal Party cannot figure out why this man did what he did. Can anyone?
Although I do want you to respond to one comment I had on my video about it today, because this person will contend that technically the man Salvar or whatever never said the word Islam. This is the thing I saw from the video I made today. It said in this video the criminal literally says he's doing it to fight wokeism. This clown conveniently ignored that. He's talking about me. I'm the clown. The attacker does not mention Islam once. The other language he goes into is Persian, and in it he also doesn't mention religious motivation. Even atheists, not saying that he is that, use Salam Alaikum, Allah, or whatever in Salah if they come from that culture. Shameless on your part, Wyatt, whatever. Like
one, inshallah, is Arab, not Persian, and someone who knows a lot more Persians than most people. No, it's Persian culture, and is like, if they're very Islamist and highly Muslim in Persian culture, then they use that. But if they're not, then no, that it's not part of their vernacular. They're quite proud of being Persian, not Arab. But yes.
And two, the idea, like they said, oh, he mentioned some anti-woke things. Sorry, do you think that Islamists are woke people? They're going to say some not so PC things about woke topics. That doesn't mean that it's now a conservative alt-right terrorist. Obviously, NCCM said, oh, he's an alt-right terrorist. All these other activist organizations who their main goal is to downplay any terrorist attack that might have to do with an Islamist and basically play up anything that might be Islamophobic sort of thing. It's their business. I can't hit the business model. They are doing their
It's
job.
a good business model. Listen, it's a solid business, guys. If you want to start a good business in Canada, open up an Islamophobia shop. It's a great racket.
But yeah, like the idea is like, yeah, he never said Islam. Okay, but he was constant. Like the articles, the news articles that came up from Global, they're like, well, he talked about taxes and spending and whatnot. Yes, specifically because he was mad that Canada gives any money to Israel, even though we should be happy that we also give money to the UNRWA, which basically is a Hamas front group. Yeah. But he's mad about that. He's mad about these genocide taking place in Gaza that the Israeli government is committing, and so obviously he's shooting up the place because of that. How many shooters do you think are fighting over housing affordability? How many? Well, the guy wasn't living out of his car. Yeah, he's maybe griping about a couple local issues too. Crazy, dumb people tend to gripe about a lot of issues in a 4.5-minute video. But do you think that the Islamism sprinkled in there isn't probably what's actually making him put bullets in a gun and run around shooting stuff and throwing Molotov cocktails? He didn't show up with a man. He wasn't exactly a sovereign citizen. Those people don't tend to say, especially when he says, I know a brother or sister will follow up for me. Obviously, he is trying to aim not at people who don't like the government. He's aiming at people who have a very, Hamas-friendly view about the world.
Yeah, this is globalizing the Intifada. Like, this is what people say, globalize the Intifada. This is what it is. And we're lucky no one was killed. And I'm happy no one is killed. But because no one is killed, we have chosen to ignore this. We have chosen to think that, oh, it can't happen. And we've sent a message to Islamists in our country that as long as you don't kill anyone, you can get away with anything. Do you want to play the video of it was parts of his rant so just people can get a feel of what we're talking about here?
Well, I just want to play the brothers and sisters part. This is this was clipped by Kirk Lubimov on Twitter. You guys should definitely go follow him. Really good account if you're looking for any of this counter extremism type stuff. But it's just 7 seconds. But like when you listen to this, you don't exactly get the impression that he's just some guy who doesn't like taxes.
Salam alaikum, brothers and sisters. Inshallah, I'll succeed with my mission. If I don't succeed, I know somebody else will succeed for me.
And again, like, well, what's the mission? Is he trying to get taxes cut? Is he trying to get rid of woke policies? Obviously not what's going on here. And the full rant makes it very clear that his specific issues are foreign policy based, not this local stuff where the woke stuff he's kind of throwing out there bit by bit. And I crawled all the articles about him from mainstream news, Edmonton Journal, Global, the Globe and Mail. If you do the Control F and you can search up keywords, not only one of them mentioned Gaza, and they just said he said something about Gaza. It was so vague. And then the other ones did not mention the Insalah. They did not mention anything to do with Israel spending. It didn't mention anything to do with Hamas. They never mentioned any of that stuff. It's not like this happened in 2019 and maybe it had nothing to do with it because there's not that much going on in the Middle East at the time, although there's always stuff going on in the Middle East. obviously we are kind of in a bit of a cultural space here where that's obviously going to be the motive for a lot of violence and harassment.
Yeah, that's this is a result of, ironically, a lot of wokeism allowing this to go on, because he can complain about a lot of wokeism. And the Islamists and the wokes clashed earlier this year or last year technically, over the gender stuff, right? Because the Islamists not too big fans of gays, right? It's there's some debate in the Islamic world on how to kill them, not should you kill them, it's how to kill them. Stoning, hanging them from a crane, pushing them off a roof. Like, this is the great intellectual debate of the Middle East.
Also, just to point out, I think this ends up just showing the arrogance of kind of woke people, that they assume that the only people who must be opposing them are like radical conservatives or something like that. So as soon as this guy says something anti-woke, they're like, well, he must be some sort of alt-right guy. Like, are you actually that kind of dull in terms of how many different groups of people oppose you? Like, go into a predominantly Asian neighborhood in Canada and start trying to sell wokeism to them. They will throw you out of their neighborhood very quickly, because they're the type of people who take academics seriously, and they do not want to hear about having like climate action week and social justice week at a school. They're most, especially ethnic minority groups in Canada, do not like the woke crap.
Yeah, and that's the thing, but the great irony is this guy who's mad at the wokes, because listen, he's an Islamist, and the Prophet Muhammad was not a non-binary, gender fluid, sex positive feminist.
Shocking.
Okay, no matter what you learn in university, that's not actually what the Quran says. So you understand why they're mad at the wokes, but the wokes will then cover for them, because they can never admit that they were wrong about anything. They cannot admit that, hey, in Canada there's some bad ideas. Okay, Canadian values are better than the values of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi and co. Okay? Hamas is a terrorist organization. Hezbollah is a terrorist organization. Communism is bad. The Palestinians are crazy. All these people are ruining our country, and we need, some cohesive form of national identity, right? That's our narrative, and their narrative is sort of the multicultural ethos of, listen, if we just mishmash a bunch of people from different ethnic backgrounds together, and then you give me all the power to control because again, they're social constructionists. If you allow me the power to create these social structures, all your problems will be solved, because culture, race, everything's irrelevant, except for, the utopia, the communist utopia I want to make. And it turns out like no one really believes in any of that, but because these people can't admit that they're wrong, they're going to sweep this under the rug. And then eventually one of these Islamists is going to go into an LGBTQ trans associated healing center. Like, listen, they're more likely to attack a synagogue. That's right. They hate Jews more than they hate gays, but they also hate gays. And eventually they're going to go into one of these gay centers and Bataclan the place. And you're going to be looking around dumbfounded. And then you're going to have to turn to people like us to be like,
they're going to do the same thing that happened at the Pulse nightclub shooting, which was great, which was insane. It was like 50 people died or something like that. And it was just, it was homophobia. It was about homophobia. Well, not
it's about homophobia.
A little bit deeper than the shooter didn't like gay people. Maybe it was probably because he was also an Islamist too. You know what I mean? I don't think there's that many like Westboro people shooting up gay bars. It's just not something that happens. Disgusting people too, but the thing is that there's a more specific ideology you might have to crack down on if you want to tone down the violence. But, our government basically facilitates it. It's nice to see that the government or the police in Toronto are finally sort of, very heavy emphasis on the word sort of, trying to keep the pro-Hamas apologist protesters off the bridges and keeping them from blocking roads in Jewish neighborhoods. But even then, they're still being really soft-handed. And again, it's not that those people are going around committing violence, but they're doing illegal activities that is obviously trying to push the envelope of what you can do to Jewish people in the city that they live in.
Yeah, I mean, these lunatics are out of control. This is what I've been saying. We've been allowing them to have their little narratives. We've allowed them to have this echo chamber where they're the victims of everything, where, October 7th was fake, and Israel and the world's against Muslims, and da-da-da-da, so I got to go commit terrorism. And we've given them this, and we've allowed them to push and push and push. We allow them to block infrastructure. We allow them to block roads. We allow them to firebomb synagogues. We allow them to do all this. The next logical step is active shoot 'em up terrorism at a crowded place. Like, it's lucky no one died, but he said, yeah, he wants his brothers and sisters.
Here's maybe a really good thing that we could talk about before we move on to another topic. I actually really liked the statement Pierre Poilievre made in response to the way that Trudeau has been sort of treating the whole Israel-Gaza conflict. And I think it was good. I made a video on it. I think it was a good insight to the way that Trudeau treats a lot of issues, in the sense that he described how Trudeau has been basically, and I think you talked about this on that Can-Am podcast, that Trudeau has been sort of sending out his more, usually some Muslim MPs, but other MPs, to go to mosques and basically say, yes, Israel's committing a genocide. It's disgusting. We are trying to put pressure on them to stop all this stuff, whatever. But then you go to, he sends all the Jewish MPs to the synagogues and say, no, Israel's not committing a genocide. No, we are going to crack down on his anti-Semitism and whatnot. And it just,
he's playing both sides.
Yeah, it's annoying.
And it's not even true. Like Yara Sachs is like too cowardly to do any of this, so she got to get Marco Mendicino to do it for her. Like Yara Sachs can't even fight against radical Islam because she's a hardcore leftist. Like Mendicino's an old school left wing liberal. Like, listen, I'm not defending Mendicino, guys. Like, I remember the Emergencies Act. Okay, I'm just saying this is sort of the ultimate, moral end game of where the radical left is, where you look at this mass slaughter and terrorism and literal murder on the streets, and it's okay if it's, something that is in for the ideology, right? So it's okay if it hates me, right? If it's pro-Canada, right? People are pointing out, like, listen, if it was a white guy, this would be front page news. If it was a non-communist, if this was a white guy who had beliefs to right of center, everyone would know his name. It would be 24-hour news. Everything would be bumped off the news. You wouldn't be able to escape this. There'd be inquiries. Pierre Poilievre would be,
even if he never shot a bullet, even if he just stood out front of the city hall with a gun and was like yelling at people.
Oh, if he just made the video,
obviously wrong, but like
if he just made the video and made a threat, we'd be at DEFCON 1 right now.
Yeah.
Like that's that's where we are. But he's an Islamist terrorist and he went to go shoot and kill people, so we can just ignore that.
So it just becomes a local crime issue.
Yeah, it may be mental health. This is a mental health episode. Because it's never like
I wonder if they're gonna recommend MAID to him.
Yeah. That'd be nice. Can we MAID this guy? Yeah, he's mentally ill. Can we MAID him? This is what I think you just stumbled on the greatest loophole in all of Canadian history. Listen, if this guy gets convicted of terrorism, like 84 counts of terrorism in Canada, that's what, 3.5 months in jail at most?
Mm-hmm.
And this guy's probably going to a mental health center. But if we get him declared mentally ill and very sad, we can just MAID him. And we figured out capital punishment. This is the only way we think. This is brilliant because we ignore terrorism by calling it mental illness in Canada. And if it was terrorism, we wouldn't put him in jail because we don't do that. We just catch and release. So instead, we blame it on mental health and we say this is a mental health issue and we treat him for mental health problems, which means in Canada, we just kill them.
Well, maybe we could just recall, maybe to get the
capital punishment.
Yeah, maybe to get the capital punishment or the death penalty back, we just have to call it progressive MAID.
Progressive MAID, yeah.
Yeah.
No, mental health services.
We're
treating his mental health issues.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
treat this guy's mental health issues. I'm down.
Okay, well,
we've gone from the least serious country on criminal justice to the most serious within a matter of 2 minutes of brainstorming here. I love
this show is not just about complaining about the problems. We come up with solutions.
We come with solutions. Yes. Where else do you get hard-hitting new policy like this? This is like the ultimate loophole.
Yeah. Well, anyways, moving on from that, I want to specifically start talking a little bit about some of the details of the Emergencies Act decision by the federal court. It was, I believe, Richard Mosley, who was the judge who was adjudicating this case, appointed by Chrétien, by the way, so no liberals can start complaining. Some people are saying, oh, it's a Harper appointed judge because it was like 2003 and they don't know when Harper was the prime minister. No. I think it's either Chrétien or it was like Paul Martin appointed. I believe it was Chrétien. It was like the last year. This is one of those things where it doesn't matter that the liberals are trying to appeal it. It's not going to work. Nobody actually even if they somehow win on an appeal because they get a really, really, maybe the federal court, the Supreme Court's way more woke, it doesn't matter. The Liberals have already lost. Most people already thought the Emergencies Act wasn't justified, even though the polling shows like it's like a 60-40 split in favor of the Emergencies Act use versus not in favor. The majority of the 60% are people who don't really know what it entailed and are just saying, I guess so. It probably made sense. The government said there's terrorist activity that it cracked down on. But the 40% are people who hate the Liberals for what they did. Nobody's accidentally saying no on that polling question. And so I think, did you read a little bit of the decision?
Yeah, I read a bit. You can break it down.
But yeah, I was actually going to say on the guy Richard Mosley. I'm actually kind of shocked that the Liberals haven't started or liberal activists haven't started trying to compare him to like Oswald Mosley or something like that, like the British Union of Fascist leader because he was sided with the truckers or something stupid like that. Anyways, but the great thing about it is that, and we'll get to a video of a liberal trying to justify the Emergencies Act, still a liberal type guy. I think he technically just calls himself a leftist, but it doesn't matter. But the decision itself, the good thing is that it's not just that the decision says, oh, the Emergencies Act use was bad, it wasn't justified. He goes point for point down the things that were not okay. And the thing he emphasizes a lot was the bank account freezing. That was the point where I don't know how any liberal individual can justify how the Emergencies Act was used. There were single mothers who could not pay for medication and food for their children because they gave $50 to the trucker convoy. And so the decision basically goes about the idea that it's not just that the Emergency Act is obviously constitutional. Yes, it exists. It's a law that can be used. But you actually have to have some level of justification. And the judge basically said at no point did the federal government arguing the case ever actually be able to show them something that they knew at the time in order to justify using the Emergencies Act. So like the Coots 4 thing, that the Coots guys have been in prison for 800 days or whatever. Thanks, Jeremy McKenzie, for getting those guys arrested. But those guys are effectively in prison, and the Liberals are using them having guns nearby Coots, or supposedly having guns nearby Coots, as the reason for the Emergencies Act. You do not get to do that. You do not get to use something that you didn't know at the time as the justification for your actions in the past. That is an endorsement of an authoritarian government type actions that I can use emergency powers, and as long as we find one person had an illegal handgun, we're good.
Yeah. Post hoc.
Okay. Super chat from Patch Dress. Super chat for the progressive algorithm. Good riddance, David Lametti. Who's next to resign? Maybe that's a good question. Who do you think?
Okay, who goes down next in the liberal thing?
Are we going to stick to cabinet ministers?
We can do. You can do any liberal. I think cabinet minister is more fun. We could troubleshoot this. I think it's a good one. I don't think Mendocino is going anywhere right now because I think Mendocino serves enough of a purpose in this sort of foreign policy dither-datter that he's serving a function manipulating the Jewish community. Yeah. I would love it if Mendocino went down next because again, as your hardcore Zionists fight the Hamas things, and Mendocino's the most on our side of the Liberal Party.
Yeah,
but I still would rather him move because I'd rather the Jews realize you have no hope in the Liberal Party because that's reality. There is no hope. Marco Mendocino is false hope to the Jews, and I think they're going to want to keep that there. So I think Mendocino is safe playing that role right now. So I think Mendocino, will survive on that.
I don't want to do too much of a cop out. I think it might be Ken McDonald, simply because of his comments about Justin Trudeau. But if it's not someone being forced out, because I think that would be being a forced out sort of a situation. Yeah. I think this is more so a type of MP I'm saying is going to resign. It's going to be like a Joel Lightbound, the guy who was one of the few liberals who opposed the Emergencies Act use and knows he's just going to be an opposition person after the next election. Maybe has a principle or two, thinks he can, leave. And do something else, maybe, ride out into the sunset as the one liberal who left for principled reasons rather than just because he couldn't get reelected or because he wasn't going to have a cabinet position.
Yeah, but I think the chat wants to know who's the next person we hate in the Liberal Party to resign. I think that's another. I see your. That is a good technical answer.
Do you think Melanie Joly?
I do think. Yeah, I do think Melanie Joly is not bound for life. She's a dum-dum, but she also might be a pillow buddy of the prime minister. So she might get
Because
to
the
stay
thing is,
on
like,
for.
Sean Fraser is so incompetent, he should be thrown out. The problem is the party has tacked too much of their, like, next election campaign on Sean Fraser and their housing policy that they can't get rid of him. Like, they've
I
basically
could
tried
see
to make
Pablo
Sean
Rodriguez
Fraser, like,
or
Justin
Gabiblion
Trudeau's
going down.
mini-me, even though Sean Fraser, if you ever watch Parks and Recreation, he's like a less charismatic version of Ben Wyatt.
Okay.
Think it through, yeah.
Here's the thing. I think Rodriguez or Gabiblio might go. I think for sort
Think
of
about it this way, though,
content.
because Tucker Carlson specifically and Danielle Smith literally said, "Will you help me get rid of this guy and get him fired?" I think that now Guilbeault, even if he wants to leave, like Justin Trudeau will like nail gun him to the
Yeah,
floor into like just these
but
lock him in his
that's
office and say you're not allowed to leave.
but it's like I think it becomes like who do we sacrifice to keep Gabiblio though? And I think Gabiblio and Pablo Rodriguez have been enough of the same similar files, and they're both evil communist losers
Yeah.
with a long history of being evil communist losers.
Do you think House
I could
Father
see
leaves?
right? I could see Pablo Rodriguez, taking the bullet meant for Gabiblio, and having to leave. That would be nice.
Here, I wonder, does Trudeau shore up his potentially like the kind of Muslim Brotherhood-y donor base of the party by getting rid of Yara Sachs? And just basically
Ooh.
says, "Hey, look, I got rid of her." And then, yeah, she
But
wasn't
Yara
doing the
Sachs
liberal
is in bed.
demonstrations
Yara Sachs
anyway.
is I would love that because Yara Sachs does more to help the Muslim Brotherhood than the Muslim Brotherhood. Like Yara Sachs, like she's the bane of like the Jewish community's existence. She's the capo that's used to justify all the things. I could see Yara Sachs going down. Like I could see the Jewish community organizing and getting Yara Sachs the hell out of there.
Yeah, and that,
because because the Jews are pissed at Yara Sachs.
do you think Yara Sachs leaves herself, or do you think she then gets forced out because she becomes a liability?
I think she gets forced out, leaves herself. I think she becomes a liability. Like I do think she's well hated enough in the Jewish community, and she's being used as a token of this that she could become a danger because there is a push in politics, and I think it benefits liberal thinking more than conservative thinking to keep this going. But like everyone sort of has this idea. You want the Chinese vote, put a Chinese person there. You want the Korean vote, put a Korean person there. You want the Jewish vote, put a Jewish person there. You want the Muslim vote, put a Muslim vote there. You want to you want something in the community, put someone up in their community.
That's been such a state set, like that's been like the biggest issue with integration in Canada. We have such bad integration that you have to run the ethnic candidate in the riding with 20-30% ethnic minority individuals, and it's because because usually they're concentrated in one riding, and it's because you haven't done enough to make people have to feel like they're now Canadians rather than they're from wherever they are. So then you have to put up the candidate from their community, because that generally white people or people who've lived here multiple generations will kind of vote for anyone who seems good.
Exactly.
And then you have to throw the community guy in. But the problem is it ends up being the biggest vector for corruption. And it's not because people from that community are corrupt. It's just because the type of person who's not usually running a small business from the Sikh community, because Sikhs are really big into like running their own businesses. The type of guy who's just kind of putzing around the political scene is usually the guy who just knows a lot of people and is not maybe the most trustworthy, because it wasn't like he's been here for he's been here for 20 years. He knows a lot of people. He's been working in the political realm. It's usually some guy who's just a big loud voice, and big loud voice people are not always the best. It's like how, frankly, a lot of union or corporate
you're right. But
liberals
my
are also
point is,
very, very corrupt people, because all it takes is being a loud thug inside of a labor union. Often those people are not exactly very good representatives either. They're either socially corrupt or actually financially corrupt individuals.
Yeah, my point is okay, that's right. And this system tends to benefit the liberals more than the conservatives. But the reason why Yara Sachs could be moved out is because if the Jewish community openly revolts against her, and she's like this token to the Jews, it will threaten this establishment-y narrative that you can appease these communities with tokenism. And once you kind of break that narrative, other communities will start to follow suit. And that's a bit of a dangerous idea to manifest in Canadian society if I were the Liberals. So that's why they might force Yara Sachs out before things get too bad on that note. All right,
Anyways.
so go back to Matt. All right, speaking of resignations, what's best for Canadian culture going forward? Trudeau resigns or gets beaten badly in an election? Not financially, not politically, culturally, and our dignity. So
I always generally say I think people need to see him get beat.
I see that. I do think it's better for the culture if he falls in his sword. In scandal, because there is something.
Okay.
There is something so terrible about what was done during the Emergencies Act, the freezing of the bank accounts. It has thrown the country into chaos. It makes it so people can't feel like their money is safe in Canada, which is a real big problem. And if someone is seen to this is what a leader needs to do for listen, if they had any moral compunction to save the country, they'd have to be like, yeah, mea culpa. I messed up. I thought it was the right thing at the time, but if it wasn't, I will fall on my sword. So it shows there's some deterrence. Like, okay, if you freeze people's bank accounts, you lose your job as prime minister. Oh, so maybe I shouldn't freeze people's bank accounts. But if you survive that,
here's where I'll push back. I think you're talking about this in an ideal world. Like, yeah, it would be good if Justin Trudeau resigned. He converted to Christianity and went on a missions trip to Africa or something like that. But it's just not going to happen. My thing is that the two options are either he resigns because the party says we can't win with you, you have to leave, blah, blah, your time's done, or he gets beaten. And I think in a certain sense, I think people have to show that because there's a lot of people who comment
you're making the case of in the realm of what would actually this would look like in reality. Here are the two realistic options. Okay, in that case, I agree.
Here's a third option I can add to you that might be more in line. Yes, he's still corrupt. Yes, he's still arrogant and everything. But there's a scandal that happens that's so bad, or there's some new revelation for a past scandal that even though the media will defend him up until the point he leaves, eventually he just says, I have to leave. And it kind of exposes that the media defense was just so partisan and that people were not telling you the truth about the story and that he had to resign finally because the scandals caught up with them. And it's explicitly because of a scandal, and that the media cannot, or just activists or partisans out there cannot ignore the fact that it was like the most scandal ridden administration we've ever had.
Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, just it's just a nice fantasy to think of Justin Trudeau getting evicted from office, and it's going to be annoying when we have to see him at the UN, like him and Greta, like going to protest, something, and Jews or trees or Jews in trees, whatever it is they're mad at. Greta, Klaus Schwab, and Justin Trudeau can all go surfing at Tofino together. That seems like nice.
Here's maybe another, hopefully I'm not losing it here. This is also why, and kind of along the same lines, why I argue that it's actually oddly good for the U.S. to have another election where it's Biden versus Trump. Because I think that they got the 2016 race, they didn't like Hillary and her based in turnaround. Trump came out, worst thing in the world, evil person, Trump's bad, all of his policies suck, he's bad on Twitter. And then they get Biden. Okay, Biden's basically reversed Trump in the sense that he doesn't tweet at all. He is kind of a nasty person, but it's kind of hidden under the surface a little bit. And they get terrible policy. And then in 2020 or 2024, then it comes back and says, okay, now which one do you want? No, I mean, you didn't like this guy's tweets. You don't like this guy's policy. Do you care more about the tweets or do you care more about the bad policy? And then they have to vote again because it's almost like a healing process that we all have to acknowledge that, okay. Trump says things online.
That's why I do think the long, you're right. The long-term message that a Trump victory over Biden in a 2.0 could send. Like, listen, DeSantis and Haley, if you look at it, they're 99.9999, 0% chance Biden beats either of the two of them. 0%.
Especially because there's many third-party options splitting up Biden.
Yeah, but you're right. If Biden loses to Trump, it is a damning statement on the Democratic Party. It's undeniable because it's a perfect test case, right? It's iteration A. Okay, people saw what Biden is, and then seeing what Biden is and seeing what Trump was, people get to make a choice between 2016 to 2020 or 2020 to 2024. And then that's actually what they're voting for. So you'd have the American people say, no. Give me the mean tweets and the good policy and the good economy versus the bad economy and the professionalism of the Biden administration.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why in Canada, it would have been so bad if Aaron O'Toole actually beat Justin Trudeau. He would have only won a minority government and he would have been out of office in a year and a half or 2 years when the next snap election was called. But if Trudeau went out till a red Tory like O'Toole, just based on the hatred of Trudeau, it would have taught the Conservative Party every single wrong lesson, and they would become. You would basically in 10 years have a Kim Campbell moment in the Conservative Party again, where the entire party falls apart because they're like, oh, just moderating ourselves to death is the right thing to do. And people would assume that it wasn't because of Trudeau's policies that people hated him. It was just the personality. He was too arrogant. He was too this. And yes, that is kind of one of the worst things about Trudeau. But at the end of the day, it's always the policy that was bad. The arrogant personality is just reflective of the big government policy. And with Aaron O'Toole coming in with borderline the same policy, just in like a slightly smaller degree, everyone would have missed the point that it's the big government, red Tory, liberal type policies people hate.
Yeah, no, they had, and I mean that's why we didn't vote for Aaron O'Toole. I voted for PPC in the last go around because I thought Aaron O'Toole was an existential threat to the country. Right? See, PPC people, we can slam the Conservative Party and call them existential threats.
I voted PPC in 21.
Right? Yeah, but when the PPC starts, being ridiculous and the CPC starts to be less ridiculous.
Yeah, that's always the thing that annoys me. Like, if you talk to a lot of PPC influencers, not all PPC voters. I literally talked to a lady at the door today. She's a PPC voter. I understand exactly why she might still vote for them. But the PPC influencers still think it is the year 2021 with Aaron O'Toole. They do not acknowledge any differences with Poilievre. And when you stop when you stop agnowledging the obvious differences, I ignore you. I ignore you. Even when people pretend,
listen, I'm not one of those. Listen, I'm not a Poilievre is God type guy. Like, Poilievre is not God. He's a politician. He'll let you down. You want to be stronger immigration? Good. He's getting there. That's good. But stop gaslighting me, PPC, and pretend we're in the Aaron O'Toole days. When we were in the Aaron O'Toole days, I was more anti-CPC than anyone in PPC. Right? I literally led that charge. Like, I led the vanguard in that anti-O'Toole crusade.
Well, here's and I know we end up always talking about the PPC in every live we do, but to almost put a cap on it for a comment for me to make, with the PPC, the problem with the PPC is you can run on really good ideas. A lot of the platform points are really good ideas. I'd agree with them. When you package up really good ideas in I'm going to be rude here for a second, a clown party where all it matters is attention and being based and all this stuff and kind of saying edgy things and whatnot. You take the good ideas, you push them out onto the sea, and then you set it on fire. Now, I mean, you took all the good policies and you basically tainted them through acting like an idiot. I mean, you acted like an immature dolt on social media, calling Pierre Poilievre and Justin Trudeau gay and all this stuff. You're an idiot. You're a moron. You're making sure that nobody will vote for your actual reasonable ideas because you were too busy trying to get clout on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've learned you do not win elections by being the most popular guy on Twitter and social media. I should know I ran a campaign that only got 203 votes in Toronto and millions of views. We got millions of views, and Ben started to do I am a Rivia Chow hero, and everyone loved it, and we put on the suit, and it was hilarious. But millions and millions of views and tens of thousands of likes and retweets don't equate to votes.
Yeah.
But it was funny. That's why we did it.
Yeah. Good super chat from David Edwards. Thank you for the $10. Just started watching. Do you think he was forced to resign because he gave bad advice on the Emergencies Act? As AG, it would have been him looking at the legality of it in terms of David Lametti resigning. We talked about this a little bit earlier. I don't think he's actually leaving because of it. I think it's maybe a motivating factor because of the EAA decision probably destroys his political career and his ability to come back. Also, I think he was resigning because he was already a backbencher. He was already kind of on his way out. He's never going to be the Liberal leader. Justin Trudeau has made it very clear he's not going anywhere. Seen through the punishing of Ken McDonald for voicing dissatisfaction with Trudeau's leadership. Trudeau's here to stay, and David Lametti would have wanted his job, and the EA decision just complicated things for him if he tried to run for his position.
Yeah, I think it was him just running away. I think it was a bit of a smart move, understanding how the media works. If I just deactivate all my social media and I run away and resign, then no one can no one can question me on this.
Media stories that it caused a few independent media stories. You deleted everything, but the point of deleting everything is unless someone way back machined all of his tweets, you can't find them anymore.
Yeah, you can't find them. And listen, he knows no one at the Globe and Mail, Toronto Star, CBC is going to spend the time to track him down and push him on this. He knows the media is mostly bought and paid for. So the people who are coming after him on alternative media, if he just deletes his social medias within a week, so we'll move on and find something else.
I wonder if someone in the Liberal Party asked him to do that. So in the next election, people aren't quote tweeting old David Lametti's things saying, hey, look, you guys said this back in the day. They're just like, please get rid of it, David. Just pretend like you're just becoming a private citizen again.
Yeah, there could be a lot of things. Like, I still call it the brave Sir Robin.
Yeah.
You know the way. That's good. As we say, his tweets have already been way backed.
I don't doubt someone has them. Maybe if you go onto the Wayback Machine, every single one of them. I think someone's probably saved them. But on specifically the Wayback Machine's like public-facing side, I maybe probably all of them haven't been. Maybe they are, but at the same time, this is the thing. Whenever people say, well, if you post something online, it's there forever. Kind of not, in the sense that the thing is, things are effectively deleted by how difficult it is to find most information. No computer could find some things that you've said 10 years ago.
And also, like, there's
words in the world, all the IP address information would never be able to find it because there's just too much.
Yeah, and like, there's the other thing of like, things kind of can go away. It's like, okay, someone with a social media following, I can tell you, like, if you don't like feed the trolls, they eventually go away. Like, this is why I try to like never block anyone, because one, if you block them, they get a screenshot. Look, Daniel Bordman blocked me. He's not a free speech champion. And then like they get attention off you, and then other people want to like harass you, so you can block them, and they can be like, look, right? Because then people can like sort of glom off the attention that you're getting. You just mute them. If you just mute them, they don't know that I don't see you, don't see them, right?
I had someone start making made a parody account of me called Wyatt Cesspool, and it pretty much went away within 24 hours because I was having fun with it, because it was funny to me. And because I found it funny, he was like, well, this isn't the reaction I wanted, and then he's left.
I like this one. I did not see Mendocino get yelled at a synagogue.
Yeah. Here's a good story for you to tell.
Should I tell everyone the background on this? This is
you're in Salmon's victory lap.
Yeah, I'll do a little victory lap on this. Okay, so I'll give you guys behind the scenes of what happened at that at the synagogue there. So they build it as a town hall for the Jewish community in Toronto, but there would be no town halling. It was just going to be a lecture from James Pasternak, Mendocino, and all these people, and the audience wasn't going to get to participate in any reasonable way. Like, no, they gave people could submit questions beforehand, and we sift through them and we looked at them, so we know. It's like, okay, bullshit. Like, I'm not letting them get away with this. So Salman and I were talking like, okay, what's the plan? This, I'm like, okay, Salman, you play celebrity, I'll be the crazy person here. So whenever like these politicians just got up, like whenever they would lie or mislead or say something crazy, I would heckle them. Like, I did stand-up comedy for years. Like, I know how to deal with hecklers, so I can definitely heckle a politician. Like, I can rile up a crowd pretty easily. So I got the crowd pretty rowdy that entire night. So it wasn't just me heckling. Like, there were like dozens of people then just like heckling Mendocino and Yara Sachs. Like, when Yara Sachs went up, like we just chirped her the entire time, and like it was great. But what really went viral, and this one I didn't even have to instigate, but the MC there was pretty good. Like, the MC, I give that MC a lot of credit. Like, he didn't decide to not make it a town hall. They kind of put all the power in his hands. But he asked Mendocino about the hypocrisy of enacting the Emergencies Act on peaceful protesters, but then doing nothing about all the jihadis running around. And then the crowd just like went crazy and then like booed and jeered. And like then Mendocino like had this non-answer, and then that got like, hundreds of thousands of views. But the other thing is like, hey, like, this is my threat to the Liberal Party. Listen, if you want to come into the Jewish community and try and claim that you care about us, I will get the entire crowd to heckle you. Like, I can turn any crowd.
Oh, and that wasn't like, there were some kind of like freedom movement type people who showed up who are, tend to go to any political event to kind of jeer up like a politician. I saw the video. There was a lot of people who are clearly just kind of middle class Jewish people.
Oh yeah, it was. I was there. Yeah,
there was probably people who vote liberal who were heckling.
Oh, yeah, these were not freedom convoy people. Like, again, these were Toronto upper middle class Jews. Like, these were like, my husband's a lawyer, and I'm on the school board, and my son's a doctor, and he's married to a whatever. Like, it was these people like who've been usually quite liberal, but I know these people quite well. So it was easy to sort of push a few buttons and then turn them into an angry mob and direct it at Marco Mendocino, Yara Sachs, Pasternak, and the police. And all of it. It was quite beautiful.
Well, one of the best parts was when the police were basically like, "You might have to leave here," and he's just like, "No, I don't talk to you. I don't talk to police."
It was a great thing. It was like Salman's like, heavy Iranian accent. Like he yells at, it was good. So the plan was,
I don't talk to police.
The plan was basically, all right, I'm just gonna fire artillery at these commies the entire time, right? I'm gonna be the crazy one. I'm just gonna heckle into this and that, and then when there's an opening, Salman, who is this hero of the Jewish community, had his arm in a sling. He could get up and make a thing. So Yara Sachs was just getting destroyed by everyone. Like I had to instigate a lot of the Mendocino and get it started. But once Yara Sachs got up and they brought Yara Sachs, like the entire crowd was like, "You suck. We hate you." And it's just going hard. And then Yara Sachs made the mistake of being like, "No, I want to hear from you guys." So Salman took that. It's like, "Oh, you want to hear what I have to say?" So Salman got up.
Wasn't the first one to speak? So it was like multiple people have been up, not taken a single question, and were like basically running out the back door as soon as they got off stage.
Oh, Yara Sachs ran away right after this was done. Like this is why Yara Sachs isn't long for the for office, because I didn't have to work that hard to turn the crowd on Yara Sachs. I just had to sort of push the first button and then have everyone be like, "We hate this woman." But she goes, "I want to hear from you." So like Salman got up, held a Canadian flag, and then made the thing like, "This is my shoulder," like the Hamas on the street. And then the cops went up to Salman stupidly, like, "You dum-dums." So I take out my phone, and then the best thing is like, as Salman's like, "Oh, look, the cops. You wave Canadian flag in Canada, the cops get angry. But if I were to advocate for the murder of Jews, they serve me Tim Hortons." He goes, "Thank you, officer," gives me a head nod and sits down. The crowd starts clapping while the officers are like trying to confront him, but like the crowd's like cheering for Salman after he just told them off. He's like,
and like, what are they going to do? They're going to fight. You guys were also sitting at the front. What are they going to do? Fight a guy and drag him all the way to the back?
We were in the reserve seats. We were in like the reserve for important people seats. Because,
well, good times.
Enough people like me that like, "Oh, here's Salman, the hero of the Jewish community." Yeah, like good luck trying to kick him out of this thing. So yeah, that was a good time. Yeah. So listen, if you want to be like, Daniel's a bad actor, he heckled and he was disrupting the event. Yes, I did. I'll do it again.
Yeah. Host stupid events, win stupid event prizes.
Yeah, like you're trying to do a bullshit event inside Toronto where like you're just going to go up and like lie to people and you think you can do it in impunity. Like if
you are going to host a fake open forum, I will treat it like a fake stupid event.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a fun night. Mendocino, like, and you see like Mendocino like has now seen me at Pre's events, and now he's like nice to me.
Oh yeah,
and now he's nice to me. Now he comes up and says hi, and he's like nice to me because he's like,
Daniel is like the. I'm going to point the right direction on my screen's mirror. Daniel is the perfect example of how, as a citizen, you can actually have a crazy amount of power and make politicians scared of you. It's not because Daniel is belligerent at all times and goes around just protesting and it's just protest movements all the time. Everyone's a WEF actor. You're all terrible. You're all evil, blah, blah. You're establishment. I won't talk to you. There are a lot of both liberal and conservative MPs who now have to take Daniel and Salman extremely seriously, because you guys actually know how to use carrots and sticks very well. It's being able
I'm not belligerent all the time. Like, and there is the threat that I will turn the entire crowd into a mob that hates you.
Yeah,
but
this is where I got called out by Yukon Strong on Twitter. Me and Rowan the Stallion, if you guys know him, we were called out by Yukon because we were saying it's good that Mendocino actually stands by Israel and says good things and says they're not committing a genocide, and then he'll pull out the thing. Well, he's a liberal actor, blah, blah, blah. He's toxic. He was okay with the Emergencies Act. He's okay with all this other stuff when he was the public safety minister. Yes, I get it. Yes, Trudeau's also sending MPs to say the opposite at mosques. But it's like the whole point is that you apply them when they do the right thing and you condemn them when they do the wrong thing. Even if they're doing it simultaneously, you say the good thing was good. Now stop doing the bad thing. When all you do to government officials is only say you're bad all the time, they're just going to ignore you and think that you're not a winnable constituent. If anything, you pretend that you're a very winnable constituent, and then you get your way, and then you're just always push them more towards
when Mendocino is there, like Mendocino, like if he wants to maintain his thing, then okay. If he's doing and saying the right things, you don't go 100%. We hate you, we hate you at you, but you go, okay, thank you. I'm at 50% now. I've cut it in half. See, we're reasonable. We're going to take the criticism, and instead of like a heavy shove, I'm going to give you a light push. While you're here, we're just lightly pushing you, and like, hi, Marco, hello, be more reasonable. Justin's a bad person. Like, maybe criticize Trudeau more, because listen, Menachino, they're all puppets of the leader here, right? The ultimate thing is to smack the liberals and fight the commies. Like that's the end game. So that's how to yell at politicians 101.
Yeah. So anyways, let's move on to the video I want to torture Daniel with. I haven't even seen a second of this video, but you all remember Justin Burrows. He's from the Canadian YouTube channel, Canadian Politics 101. We found out since we last did a stream about him that he actually was convicted for stealing a less than or more than $5,000 from his former employer, and then was so pathetic that he claimed that he couldn't pay them back because he was too busy with student loans, and then he was called in by the court because he was obviously not even paying his student loans either. Or he was basically using it as an excuse, and he obviously was not with that weighed down. So anyways, I wanted to talk about this video because Justin Burrows is going to defend the Liberals' use of the Emergencies Act post the decision coming down saying that it was a illegitimate use of the Emergencies Act. Sorry, what does this do? I'm just trying to get a better looking. Okay, I can't. This is what it's going to look like. Anyways, I want to see his video. It's 11 minutes long. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but we're going to let the tape run a little bit more as we watch this. Break it down into one minute.
And I will say, okay, everyone, I have for chat out there, I have limited Wyatt to one of these per TNT live stream. So we get only one nonsense, crazy, outlandish, liberal TikTok or whatever per live stream. So
I get two
one.
TikToks.
There isn't a second. There's the second one coming, inshallah.
Okay.
Was the Emergencies Act unconstitutional? Or that's the question everyone's asking this week after two civil rights litigators have successfully sued the government and got a decision from a federal judge, which on paper would seem like he ruled that the Emergencies Act invocation was unconstitutional. I mean, if you believe any of these institutions that all ran stories talking about that, that's where that story would be. But in any good story, we need to read past the headline and actually look at the full picture and look at the facts for what's being said here.
Why does this guy think that the Liberals are having to appeal if he didn't deem, the judge didn't deem, Mosley didn't deem that the Emergencies Act use was against the charter? Why would they have to appeal? The guy's a flipping idiot.
Here. And all these institutions that said that the Emergencies Act was deemed unconstitutional clearly didn't read the decision by the judge, because that's not what the decision said. And I know this because I've read the decision. All 138 pages or so of it. I don't know how many it is. It's a lot. It's a decent read if you like to read this stuff like the political nerd or legal nerd that we know you are. But like I said,
I bet those actually just a bunch of printer paper. That's not 138 pages.
that I have read the decision and I have gone through it, and so has so many legal scholars and journalists that actually like to do the work. And the Emergencies Act invocation, based off of this federal judge's decision, did not deem it unconstitutional. Full stop. This decision by a judge did not say the Emergencies Act was deemed unconstitutional. There is actually
we already covered this, but that's not the question. Is it necessary and not unconstitutional? Yeah, it's a law. You can invoke the Emergencies Act. It's in the Constitution. You can do it. Is it justified? That's the question. It was unnecessary and therefore unjustified.
It would be like if a murder conviction got overturned and then they come out and say, well, they never said the laws against murder were against the charter. No, we're saying that it was misapplied, misapplication of the law. And yes, not every portion of the Emergencies Act use under Trudeau would have been deemed unconstitutional. There would have probably been little elements of it that they probably met the standard. The whole point is that they did not meet the full standard to invoke it because they had other powers.
Paragraphs in this decision, and we're going to go through it in this video. So this video may be a little bit longer than normal. This isn't the smoking gun that if you're a convoy supporter that you needed to justify the hatred towards Justin Trudeau or this government and the invocation of the Emergencies Act. this decision is not the thing you needed. And in fact, it actually paints a picture to you that you're probably not going to like. So let's break this decision down. And I've broken it down to some very key points. Now, legal decisions are very complicated reads. And I want to make something very clear to you all that I am not a lawyer. I am not claiming to be a lawyer. I'm a political scientist, and I am reading this from the lens
scientist,
of a
you
political
say?
scientist. And mainly
I've taken a lot of pre-law classes. It is not hard to read a legal decision. The hardest part about it is like the citations for legal decisions. It's pretty easy.
stuff. What
He's a
revolves
political
around
scientist,
the chart.
everyone. A scientist. A man of
So
science.
let's break it down and go over some of the key points in here. In this entire decision that I have right here, unconstitutional was only in there 2 times. The word unconstitutional was only mentioned twice, and it had to do with addressing the applicant's claim of it being unconstitutional. The judge is not saying that the Emergencies Act was unconstitutional. That's not what he's saying in this particular decision. But let's continue on. So in paragraph 226,
Well, also, a lot of words that are like conclusive in making a decision are often not used very often, because most cases are just like the facts. It's like literally just the facts for like 7/8 of the entire thing. That's why you can basically always skip to the end, because everything is just telling you what happened, and then it's saying, well, what did the judge think about it?
he states that the government was acting on the information that they had at the time, and I'll read it to you now. It'll be on the screen. That the respondent submits that it was reasonable for the government in council to have the objective basis for its belief that the requirements of the public order emergency has been met based off compelling and credible information that was before them and before cabinet. And he cites Canada versus the Minister of Citizenship and Immigration versus Harket, a 2014 decision. And he continues to say the court should guard against a hindsight analysis and assess the GIC's actions in context that existed at that time. The act did not require the Section 58 explanation to engage in detailed assessment of the facts, rather to outline them in a general way. So what this is basically saying, from my thought on this, is that the government had information that would justify, or they believed to have justified, the invocation of the Emergencies Act, and they acted on that information, and they are free to act on that information based off a 2014 decision. So that's kind of the first thing. And this isn't even in the conclusion. This is just in the statement of facts. Moving on to the conclusion, in paragraph 370,
The judge would have been also ruling there against the government, saying, well, we found guns nearby Coots, ergo is okay, because they didn't know about that. And they had no clue that anything in Coots was even happening, like in terms of anything like that. They was all focused on Ottawa was the point of the Emergencies Act.
Judge says, had I been at the tables at that time, I may have agreed that it was necessary to invoke the act. That right there, this is in the conclusion. This is in his decision at the very bottom, where he goes over all the stuff that he has decided in this case, that he himself, if he was a cabinet minister, the prime minister, or the government in power, whatever, would probably have invoked the act with the information that was
No, this is like the thing where he said, like, no, this is him saying, like, you know, he probably would have been like, he's stating that he was anti-convoy before all of this. Like, the judge, his whole thing is like, again, he's a liberal judge. He was appointed by Chrétien. He is basically saying, yes, I probably would have been in favor of this. In fact, like, as a person, I was looking at it from the outside and being like, invoke it. But now, once all the facts have come out, it didn't reach the actual threshold. Like, had, you know, like, with all the evidence provided, no, it didn't meet the standard. Like, that's what he's saying. He's saying that, like, I'm someone who's sympathetic to the anti-convoy people and the anti-convoy position, but legally didn't fit the standard.
And like, what's this guy? Like, and what this guy Justin Burrows is doing is he's just talking around the decision. The decision that he had a decision at the end. Again, what is Chrystia Freeland appealing if the judge is just agreeing with her?
Yeah, exactly. What are they appealing if they did that? Like, he's just cherry picking random paragraphs from different points of this thing and saying, like, you know, because sometimes in legal decisions, judges like outline hypothetically, like they summarize the like in a judge's decision, sometimes they will summarize the argument of the defense and summarize the arguments of the prosecution. They'll summarize the two different things and then they'll fill in things. So what he's doing is he's basically cherry picking paragraphs where the judge summarized the Liberal Party's defense and then being like, look, this is what the judge is saying. He's like, no, this is what the judge is saying the Liberals were saying. Like,
Yeah. No, 100%.
Time. I know, Brutus, that isn't the smoking gun that you think it is. Hey, Brutus. Yeah. The decision was basically made ultra vires, which is basically just saying that the government acted over its bounds and over its scope, which is a very
yes, that's the whole thing. That's the entire argument. Oh,
This would be like an excessive force case where the judge found that a police officer had used too much force. Yes, he is not saying that the ability for a police officer to detain or arrest someone or be able to neutralize some sort of a threat is not okay. But it's like he's saying, but you can't unload your gun into like a shoplifter. That's what this is all about. Like,
yeah, like there, smoking gun. There, you found it. Thank you, Justin.
Yeah.
Like, case solved. Case closed. Moving on. Why is there more time to this video, and why do I have to watch it?
Loose legal term from what I remember. Again, I'm not a lawyer.
Oh,
a lawyer would be able to answer this better.
All right,
But
I'm putting a
I
cap on 2 minutes.
don't think this guy could put together my Subway sandwich, let alone analyze a legal case.
All right, guys,
saying that the government
put in the chat how many minutes total is Wyatt allowed to pick for a video of liberal lunatics on these streams? Well, everyone say how much of this man can you watch before
I have skipped ahead for you, Daniel.
Okay, thank you.
Here actually talks about that, basically saying that the judge should be ordering an Oakes test be done to violate the charter, and that the judge himself here is not saying that it's a charter violation until an Oakes test is basically completed. So this is outlined in paragraph 342 of the.
I forget what the specific Oakes case was about, but an Oakes test is just the idea. And again, just saying it didn't violate the charter didn't mean that the government didn't do something that was illegal. Not everything illegal is against the charter. And he's even opening the door to saying that if they do an Oakes test, which is based off some case where like the government obviously exceeded its constitutional authority, that basically that there should be a test to see if this was a charter violation. The whole point is that definitely the government did something illegal, but was it like charter violating levels of illegal? But no, I guess this means that the government, it's a big government Justin Trudeau W, that a judge is literally saying we have to see that if you guys have basically committed violations against the country itself.
Yeah, it's like,
here.
we've
Basically
determined this is
saying
illegal,
that,
but do we need the death penalty here? It's like, oh, he wasn't sentenced to death, so therefore he must be innocent.
Yeah.
The buck and saying, do the Oakes test, talk to the Supreme Court if you're looking for a charter violation. And in paragraph 372, he says the decision is only based on the facts that were presented here and not the full picture. Basically saying that he's concluded that his decision in this proclamation does not bear hallmarks of reasonability, justification, transparency, and intelligibility. Basically saying that based off of the legal facts that he's being presented by the two litigators, the applicants in this case, he's making the determination that it was unjustified to.
No. It was based off all of the facts analyzed. It wasn't just some of them. The government can provide their own facts. The judge doesn't just say, I don't care about your facts. I'm just going to look at the.
Yeah, do you really think the judge, listen, the litigants here were the Canadian federal government and the CCLA, the Canadian civil, these are
There's
two.
the CCF as well, Constitutional Freedom Foundation or Canadian Constitutional Foundation.
Okay, but these are legitimate institutions. Okay.
Yeah.
Within center left technocratic spheres. Okay, you might not like these institutions, and fine, but I'm saying that fancy pants dinner party class, the CCLA and these institutions, the Liberal Party, the judge can't ignore these. You cannot call the CCLA crazy nut jobs. They're all lefties. They're
They're lefties with some principles.
Yeah, but they just have some principles. So they brought and good on them. So hey, this is what the left is supposed to be. Hey, rights belong to everyone. Good on them. Old school lefties, I respect this. Okay, and
what Justin Burroughs is basically doing here, he's basically saying, well, there might have been, and maybe he'll say this, there might have been secret evidence that the judge didn't consider that none of us know about.
Yeah.
That
top secret evidence.
That's like saying, oh, I lost, but if I did this, I would have won. So technically I won because I could have done that.
Yeah, we didn't score any touchdowns, but if we did, we would have got more points and then won.
We had planned to score 40 touchdowns. So many touchdowns. We just didn't.
All I had to do was get 100 yards and then throw the ball into the end zone, but I didn't because I didn't want to.
On the paper that I don't even have, we're a better team.
Yeah.
To invoke the act. But this is just two organizations that have been fighting against the invocation of the Emergencies Act from the very start. This does not include any testimony from police. This does not include any testimony from government officials, like at the Ottawa or provincial or federal level. This does not include testimony from convoy organizers themselves. This does not include testimony from the citizens of Ottawa that were affected by the convoy.
Oh yeah, you can just basically like cave someone's skull in with a truncheon if an Ottawa resident is annoyed. What does this guy think? Like they were presenting evidence in this case, and the thing is, notice the man did not read the whole case. The man did not read the whole case. Yes, he's going through it, but you can tell because it's not like he's going point for point. We went from like 272 to like 300 to like 347. We're like really I guarantee he just control F'd this entire thing and then just looked for words he liked.
Yes, that's what I'm reading.
And
here.
in turn, the citizens of Windsor
He is a political scientist
that were
after
also
all.
affected by
this is science.
Man, that was
we got some pretty fine science going on right now.
That is the funniest part of the entire video. Is someone saying that they're a political scientist, like there's some cachet behind it.
Can I put everyone out of their misery? Like, can we end this video, please? Because he's not going to say it. Like this guy's a dumb.
I'll stop doing this to you.
Okay, thank you, Wyatt. Although the chat,
but don't pretend that you were saving the audience. You're saving yourself.
I was saving myself and the audience.
You're the guy who dresses up as a woman to get off the Titanic.
But I got off that Titanic and I didn't get off alone. I filled up the lifeboat. Yes, I stuck onto that lifeboat, but I did bring other people on the lifeboat with me.
I wouldn't tell people to go like his channel or subscribe to it, but definitely go and watch. Hey, don't bring that up. Stop it. No. Anyway, okay. Don't go like subscribe to Justin Burrow's channel or Canadian Politics 101. But if you're ever looking for like the pure distillation of whatever the Liberal Party's take on something is going to be, go and watch his. It is the most nakedly open, I don't know what I'm talking about sort of a channel I've ever seen. Like the thing remember the video I showed you where he says pure Poilievre doesn't have a plan.
Do you not respect science?
Yeah.
Are you anti-science? Why? He's a political scientist. He's a scientist of politics.
Have you ever, when you were in university, have you ever bumped into people who have political science backgrounds or whatever, and they actively act like it's an actual science? Well, I'm a political scientist. Let me tell you what's going on in the news.
I had a friend who had like a politics degree, but he just used it. He never pretended to be like a politician. He's just like, it was easy enough, and I want to get into law school.
Oh, yeah, no, it's a good pre-law class, same as history. But they're every once in a while in my department.
Someone who takes political science and thinks they're a scientist of politics, they need to be deported.
I took public policy for both my undergrad and master's, and even then, like, it's not an impressive degree. You have to like kind of know how to use it. And it's not like, oh, it's so specialized. You have to know how to use it. I mean, like, it's a niche degree with niche applications. Never try and impress anyone with those. And there are these people being like, oh, these people are in business. I'm in public policy. Shut up. I will stand up for those people, and I'm in the same degree as you. That people with business degrees have more to say about politics and the media and just news than someone with a public policy degree. I don't trust you if you have a public policy degree.
Yeah. Is that okay? Are we done with? Do we have any more topics for the day? We've done Lametti gone, terrorism, Trudeau. But I repeat myself.
Oh, yeah. I want to quickly talk about this. It's a local thing to Alberta, and it'll be very fast. You don't even have to comment on it. Conservatives have to stop being pathetic on certain issues. Stop trying to appeal to minority communities in the dumbest ways possible. The United Conservative Party under Danielle Smith, who just sat down with Tucker Carlson, I wish he would have brought this up on stage. The UCP passed an anti-racism grant program and an ethnocultural grant program. That is actually called it. Yes, technically it's just one program that's been split into two programs. Stop it. Scrap the whole thing. It's only $9.5 million combined. But get rid of the entire bureaucracy that administers it. Get rid of the anti-racism, like the Alberta Anti-Racism Advisory Board. Get rid of it. Stop it. Stop. Minister Mohammed Yassin should be fired if he does not get rid of these things that he's administering. I guarantee this is just a stupid attempt to try and appeal to different community groups in like the Northeast and other like kind of enclave type areas. It's dumb.
And you don't realize that when you try and appeal and do this, the Liberals can always do this harder than you, and you open the door to, if you don't give money to anti-racist bullshit, if you don't send money to Hamas, then you're racist, and the Liberals will always send more money to Hamas than you will. So
here's the worst thing, because the thing is that this will never, it's not even just that the NDP will give more. even if they were committing $1 billion towards it, it doesn't matter. The problem is that these people disagree with you on every other issue. So it's not about the dollar signs. Anti-racism grant programs, yes, the anti-racism grant program's only at 1.5 million. The other one's like 8 million or 7.5 million or whatever. Stop funding people. The ethnic community group thing is going to end up being some left-wing DEI diversity organization from within the group. And the anti-racism one, obviously going to be leftist because it's a whole leftist concept. You're basically employing idiots to start their own nonprofits and get $25,000 to host a dumb event where basically they say, go vote for the NDP. Here's some values that are going to push you.
Yeah, you pay money to a bunch of losers to undermine you for the next few years. Yeah, it's dumb.
It's not like it's just. I talked to a couple MLAs about it. I talked to the president of the party. The president of the party was actually ticked when he heard it, so that's good because a lot of good people are actually on the party board. One of the other misters I talked to was a little annoyed by it, and he said, literally, I told him this before the Tucker event started. Please get rid of this. And he said, I've literally had 2 other people tell me today about this, and I hope that they watched my video, and that's why they were bothering him. But they should be bothered. Get rid of it. And the thing is, I hate when conservatives get into government and they're like, I can't find anything to cut anymore. What wasteful spend? You guys just ran on wasteful spending. Just
this is the Doug Ford thing. Yeah, we're going to cut the budget. Somehow he ends up spending more money than Kathleen Wynne and all this. Like, what's the point of Doug Ford?
Federally, and this is why I'm running for the Calgary Signal Hill nomination. I'm not going to go into my website or anything. Who cares?
Vote Wyatt or else.
Yeah, vote Wyatt or else in Signal Hill, Calgary Signal Hill. Anyways. But like in the federal level, our budget from 2015 under Harper to this year, the one that they're putting forward, or 23 to 24, it went from $249 billion a year to now $429 billion a year. Yes, immigration's out of control and how many people we're bringing in, but I don't think our population has doubled since 10 years ago. I think it's that we spend money on stupid crap. So if in the next, when a conservative government forms, if I hear someone say that, we don't want to cut anything. We don't want people to think that we're we don't care about social programs. Shut up. Why was it that we could get along with 249 billion, but we can't, but for some reason we need all 429 billion now? It's dumb. Just cut dumb programs. There's so much garbage you can cut. And the thing is that the bureaucracy won't want to do it. And if they're slowing, just fire them then. Just get freaking rid of them. It's so easy. Government's not that hard. I know it actually is.
Just fire
really
everyone.
Hard and grinding in real life, but in terms of, it's not hard to get on the right track. Be Ralph Klein, be Mike Harris.
Coming for your jobs.
Yeah,
coming for you. Diversity, people.
Yeah,
no
I will
more
replace
diversity.
every deputy minister with Daniel Boardman.
Yes, Daniel Boardman, Minister of Anti-Racism.
Yeah,
Minister of Hamas. Allahu Akbar.
Well, this is a great stopping point, unless you have another random story to bring up in the last few seconds of this. Nothing really.
I think there. I mean, yes, there's always stuff we can go into because it's been a crazy week. We go around the world.
Daniel can save that for like a solo live. We'll start doing more solo. Here's maybe the last bit of housekeeping. We'll both try and do more solo live videos in the future. I remember a guy before the stream had even started. I remember him. I just forgot the name. He saying that we should start lives earlier. We will try. I was literally out door knocking, and obviously your door knocking hours are between 3:30 and 7:30. So even to start it at 7 p.m. my time, 9 p.m. Eastern, I'm already kind of starting. I'm already kind of leaving early from door knocking. And Daniel often is busy and can't do all this stuff while he can't do lives whenever he has a life too. So what we'll try and do is that these lives, maybe we'll do it a little earlier. It might be the late show. And then when Daniel or I do it solo, it'll probably start at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, whatever time.
8 p.m. EST is more reasonable than 9.
You can start it earlier whenever, but we'll start kind of doing random stuff, maybe morning shows, just content.
We'll figure it out. It's also 10:20 at night, and I still have a bunch of calls to make and meetings to do technically.
Yeah, and so we don't want to schedule the show to death to the point where we only ever do it once every 2 weeks to have the most ideal time, and we end up not talking about any topics.
People get it. We don't need to over explain timing to them. They're bored already. So I'll say thank you everyone for coming out. This has been TNT Live. Thanks everyone on the super chats. We will see you next week at some point. More content coming out. like, share the video, follow us on YouTube if you're there. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and wherever it is. If you want to, how do you find us? Search our names. We're there. If it's a picture of one or two of us, follow us to glory, to the promised land. And inshallah, one day Justin Trudeau will be no more. Habibi. Rock Allah.